trying to understand how to really tap into that or channel that more. Since you have so much experience with communication on that sort of frequency, I wanted to sort of know if I could learn a little bit more about that.
Basically, with me, I don't put a whole lot of thought into it. I mean, I really don't. The way I started as far as connecting with my higher self and my, higher guides, was through continuous meditation. And I know that sounds like a very basic answer, but I would meditate every single day. And a lot of times I would get nothing. It would be like, crickets,
Yeah, no, yeah.
The more I meditated, however, the more I was starting to discern the voices in my head that belong to my monkey mind. Okay, so so this, my own inner chatter and voices in my head that were coming from something outside of myself. So then I got to be very good at discerning what was what. Okay, because a lot of times when you're going in your head and you're trying to get, connecting with, the higher dimensional realms, there's like layers of programming in our brain that kind of acts as a barrier to connecting with the higher realms. So we have to learn to bypass all that programming, all that chatter, so it's like I call it the monkey mind, but other people have other names for it. With me, when I hear a voice in my head that doesn't sound like it comes from me, so the language style is different, the voice might sound different, like the way they speak is more formal or it's a slower speech. I think you and I, we both are very fast talking people, so we talk and very animatedly. So if I hear a voice in my head that sounds like it's slower, more deliberate, more formal
Structured.
language, yeah, it's more structured, yeah, then I know that's from my higher guides or my higher self. So it's not me. So sometimes it might even be like a short phrase. For instance, just to give you an example, I might ask, should I continue working at this place? And they say, no. Or they might say, you need to quit now, or you need to not do this, or you should do this. So it's very, very succinct, very, very direct. A lot of times with my own inner chatter, I always go, with my own inner voice. It's always kind of like, oh, but, so I'm always kind of trying to overanalyze. Okay. This is a more deliberate speech, so they're basically being very direct with you. At least that's how my guides operate. My guides also are kind of funny because they like to give me messages through music and songs. So every day when I used to drive to work, I would get a song message on the radio. So the very first song that played on the radio was my song message. I was like, oh, there's my song message for the day. I know that sounds kind of dumb, but I
No,
have really
I actually have in the morning. I get a song in my head. First thing in the morning, it was playing in my head, and on my side, the other voice aspect, or the other layer of consciousness that's trying to stream through you, that comes through to me too. It's kind of odd because I find that when I'm doing an activity that's kind of half focused, like let's say you're exercising or doing cardio, and you're kind of focused on the activity but not really ideally thinking of anything in particular. That's why I guess on my side, what's happening is I'm trying to understand how to fine tune it better, because on my side, when I go into the Akashic Records for myself right now, I'm just getting a lot of snippets and fragments of visuals, and it's kind of maddening a little bit, because I guess to some degree the logical mind wants to piece it together in a cohesive way that you can understand it clearly, but it's like seeing different scenes of a movie.
It is, yeah, no, it's exactly how it is. Yeah, the way you're describing it is exactly how I get imagery too. And I guess maybe I'm more practiced at, just because I've been reading the records longer. So, I'm more practiced at discerning, okay, how does the sequence go, because otherwise you'll constantly get messages and snippets and.
That's the part I'm trying to get a handle on, I guess. It's funny because I go in and then I kind of come out and I try to write down everything that I get, but it's like then I look at the paper and I'm like, none of it makes sense. So I'm like, so that's the part I guess I'm stuck. Wanted to reach out to you just because I felt like there's different elements of things going on, and I'm trying to make sense of it.
Yeah, I think that takes practice. Sometimes when I'm getting too many messages at once, and because I was having this issue for a while where I was just like overwhelmed. Like it was just like, okay, I'm getting to wait. Yeah, it's like okay, it's like the floodgates have opened, and it's like I'm getting way too much information. Okay, so the way my Akashic teacher described it to me was, imagine you have a dial in your head, and the dial is, your stream of information that's supposed to be coming from the records. So ask your guides to help you dial it down. Okay, and I thought that sounds kind of corny, but I thought, okay, I'll try it her way, but it actually works. It works, So I learned to dial down the influx of information I'm getting. So it's starting to make more sense, so it's not like so exhausting and overwhelming when you're access, because otherwise if you have no filter, you'll just get a bunch of information, and it's just like, this doesn't make any sense because it's like too much all at once. But if you turn down the dial a little bit, you'll get more of a stream. Okay, so it's not, so then, you might still get fragments, but at least you'll be able to understand how to piece them together a little better. I don't know if that's making any sense, but
no, understood. I mean, it's just like this random blast, and I guess in hopefully slowing it down, the blast of information starts to kind of
it'll make more sense to you. Yeah. And then you get so practiced to where you'll get a piece of information and you know exactly where it comes from. It's like, oh, okay, that's from Lyra, or that's from Andromeda. Oh, wow. Yeah, I mean, it's like I'll get a piece of information and I'll recognize it, and I say, yeah, that's the Pleiades, or that information is from angels or angelics, or it's just you start to understand the energy signature of the information you're receiving. And it's hard to explain what that looks like. It's almost like you recognize it almost by frequency more than verbally describing it. It's like you can't really verbally describe it. It's like when I read people's auric fields, it's like it's an energy signature. It's not even really color, or sometimes there's colors, but most of the time it's just like a frequency. So then you learn to discern between certain frequencies. So then you'll say, oh yeah, that's an earth frequency. That must be an earth life I'm seeing. You know what I'm saying? So that's why. And then after a while, you'll develop your own, I guess, formula. Okay. So that's how I do it. Is I have a formula. So my formula is to start from the beginning. I always try to do it in a linear fashion because that's what works for me. If I'm just trying to do too much all at once, and sometimes that's how the information comes to me, but then I'm like, no, I'm going to start from the beginning. So I just tell myself, so I'm telling the Akashic guides, no, I don't want all this information all at once. I'm going to start from the beginning and work my way forward. Because otherwise, you'll be getting random stuff from Earth, from Pleiades, from some other galaxy or universe. I mean, you'll be like totally confused.
It is, and it's snippets of different things. And sometimes when I'm getting the visions, I'll be like, that doesn't look like this time frame. Like,
oh yeah, sometimes you'll get information and it's like, this isn't even from this dimension or this timeline. It's like, and somehow that. I mean, it's like you can tell, when you're looking at it. It's like, this is a different dimension, or this is not. This is a different timeline, because the Akashic records, it can show multiple timelines at once. So that's the confusing part of going into the records is. So a lot of times when I'm doing readings for people, I'm just trying to focus on kind of a linear sequence that makes some sort of a sense. So usually I start from the past. I I don't try to mess with future images until I get to that point in the reading. But sometimes if it starts in the future, and I keep saying, no, I want to go to the past, but it keeps starting in the future, it's telling me that that person is either one, a parallel soul, or two, they came from the future. So their journey started in the future. Now, in
Wow.
your
Okay,
case,
I've
I
never
don't
heard of
think,
that.
yeah, I don't think that's the case with you. Okay. I I think sometimes what happens is we get a stream of information and it's just like, wow, this doesn't even look like this timeline, or it looks like a future timeline. And maybe your guides are wanting you to know something from the future. And then you say, okay, well, show me what's in the future. It'll show you, and a lot of times it'll make sense because you can see how, oh yeah, that looks like something I might be doing in the future. Or, I mean, maybe if it's on this planet, maybe it's on a different planet or a different star system, but it'll make sense. If it's something that completely doesn't make sense, then you might be getting your records mixed up with somebody else. Okay, so that.
Really? Okay, so see, I'm glad to speak to you just even in the sense of just understanding what could possibly be happening.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, sometimes you can get your records confused with somebody else's. That's happened. And sometimes I'll get other people's records. But a lot of times I can pick up pretty quickly, like, oh yeah, that's not the right records. It's like this is not making any sense. That's why I really focus on people's full names and birth dates. When I'm accessing the records, that is like super important because you don't want to accidentally pull somebody else's records, because then you're really going to get confused. Okay, and then you'll be getting erroneous information that's not even your information. Okay, it's or the information that you want to obtain. So then it gets really confusing. So a lot of times when you get really practiced with accessing the Akashic records, you can even access somebody else's records through your records. Okay, and that's a kind of a little trick. But so let's say if it's somebody in your family, a lot of times this works best if they're family members.
Yes.
So let's say if it's your husband's records, you say I want to access my husband's records. You can actually access some Akashic rule if I'm accessing that person's records.
It's almost like because they're intertwined with you.
Exactly. Yeah.
To get that
Exactly. Yeah.
information in some way. Yeah.
I just access their information. And a lot of times it's really easy when it's their children. Okay, when it's children, really super easy. You'll get that information immediately. If it's parents, a little bit more difficult, but it can be done. Brothers and sisters, a little bit more difficult, but it can be done. Spouses are real easy. I mean, because they're part of your immediate family. So then you'll know immediately, like, oh yeah, that's not my records, that's my sister's records, or my mom's records, because you'll understand the signature. Okay, and it's all energetic. It's kind of hard to explain with words how this is based on frequency. So you recognize, oh, this isn't my frequency. This is my mom's frequency, or my dad's, or
that only comes with time, I suppose. Yes.
Yeah, it's just practice. And it's not hard. I mean, so I hope I'm not making it sound harder than it is.
No, no. I mean, it basically, it's almost like, I mean, the only other way I can kind of parallel it is the subtle differences in tone, and that's kind of how I'm feeling it when you say it. It's just through going over it or practicing, you start to just recognize it. It's kind of like when you play an instrument, you start knowing notes. And
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's a lot like playing an instrument. Yeah, it's
so you go off key and you go, okay, that's not me.
Yeah, yeah. You hear this tone, it's like, oh, that is not my tone.
Yeah, exactly.
No,
Like
hell no.
So, yeah, because sound is still frequency, and to some degree, that's about the only way I think we can.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And with me, I guess I've gotten really good at reading frequency. So, that's why I can discern just by looking at somebody what star system they're from, because I'm reading their frequency basically. So it's basically just looking at their auric field. So it's kind of like looking at people's auras. When you do those, you go to the like the metaphysical fairs and they take your aura picture.
Yeah.
And you see these colors. So that's basically how I'm seeing people through my third eye, is looking at their auric field, and I'm seeing different frequency and colors, basically.
Wow. Okay.
Now that's a skill that anybody can develop. It's not, one that's, particular to me. Yeah, and anybody can do that. It's as a matter of fact, my teacher and mentor used to teach people how to read auras. And basically, what you're doing is, I mean, if you're just first starting out, let's say you're looking at somebody's aura. It's easier to do it if they're against a blank wall.
Yeah.
So in a lighter color wall, the better. So a white or maybe a cream colored wall, and kind of like squint your eyes a little bit. So you squint your eyes and then you focus in on the energy that's around them. So not at them, but the energy that's around them. So this would be the auric field, and you'll start seeing colors. And it was interesting because she would have us look at somebody, and then we're supposed to draw that person and do color in their aura. And everybody was getting similar colors for the same person. So everybody was picking it up. So it wasn't like, oh, there was people that was better at it than others. Yeah. So all of us were seeing the same colors associated with that person, or very similar colors. So that's like a really good way to practice. Like, maybe, if even if like you did it with you, and I don't know if you have children, but yes. It would be a fun thing to do with your children. Like, oh, look at Daddy's aura, and let's color it in and see how similar it is.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I used to do it with my niece. I would always say, "Hey, let's look at the." We always did the cats because we were always kind of like, I know, because animals have auras too. Okay, so we would, let's do the aura for the cat, and then we color it in, and it's like. A lot of times we get rainbows for animals because animals have all their chakras wide open, so.
Oh, got it. Okay, I didn't even think of it that way, that there was a correlation between.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, animals, their chakras are wide open usually. So with humans, some people have certain chakras that are blocked, so you might see one color more than the other, or you might see some imbalances with their auras, but with animals, it's usually rainbows. I don't know why.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
No, that's cool. I mean, but it makes sense, kind of. It does make sense.
Yeah, but this just helps train you to look at the auric field, and then it helps you to train yourself on how to look at frequency when you're in the Akashic Records. So there's a process to this, So, and I hope to teach a course in this sometime. I have some other projects I'm working on first, but once I get done with those projects, this is probably going to be the next project, is how to do Galactic Akashic readings, because my style of doing readings is different than, say, Linda Howe's, so.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, no, I took a course since I had last, had a session with you, and I it's more of the 3D earth bound, I guess you could say.
Yeah, a lot of Akashic readers focus on Earth lives. I've noticed that, which is nothing wrong with that. I mean, if that's, where you're at, that's what you do, but I think you get a more full picture when you look at the entire 180-degree view of your soul's journey. And most of us didn't start off in Earth, so Earth was Earth is like a small blip, so.
No, and that's why as I read with other people and got more and more validation about my starseed origins, I was being told that the energy from that part of me was actually pretty strong, and I was, kind of feeling like I was not pigeonholed, but just maybe really narrow in a certain vision, and that's what kind of prompted me to reach out to you again and kind of see if you see anything, I guess, that I can't, I don't have awareness of right now, that's just like maybe blocking me, or just kind of, or is it just part of my development at this point, and I'm just being too impatient?
I don't think there's anything blocking you. I think it's just maybe lack of self-confidence. I know that sounds very general. I used to think the same thing, like, everybody was saying, oh, you're accessing this information from the records. And I was thinking, I don't even know how I'm accessing the records. I couldn't even really. So I was having this, and it was all mental, like, oh, I can't be accessing the records. I don't even know how to do it. But then when I kind of let go of kind of the 3D concept of this process, it doesn't even really need to be a process. It's kind of like oh, I just want to access the records, and it just happens, automatically. It gets to where, I mean, I think we go through a process initially when we're learning something because we're just learning, we're learning, okay, this is what you're supposed to do first, then you're supposed to do this next, and then you're supposed to do that next.
It's the ritual of the format, correct?
Yeah, but then it gets to the point where you just zoom through that. It's kind of like, driving a car. At first, you're really having to think about, oh, I got to hit the brakes now, or I got to, pull on the emergency brakes, or whatever it is that you're doing when you're driving. But then it gets to be automatic, and you don't really think about it anymore. Well, accessing the Akashic records is a lot the same way, where it becomes like an energy thing. Like, oh, I need to access the records, and boom, you're in the records. I mean, it's
understood. I mean, when I was taking the course, the instructor that I had said, opening your records, it doesn't always have to be this formal process. You could decide to tap into it, like when you're in a meeting or.
Oh yeah, I mean, I have people that access their records while they're doing a Reiki reading on somebody, or Reiki healing on somebody. It's like, and they do it all, it's not like they have to go through the whole, pathway prayer process. They just access the records for that person. I do it a lot, like if I'm needing like really quick information, and it's not as intrusive as you think, because a lot of times you weren't supposed to get information on that person. The record, the Akashic record guides won't allow you access to that information. So it's almost like immediate, like, okay, you want to get information, say, on your ex-boyfriend, but you can't access anything. Okay, I'm just using that as an example. Then okay, I'm not supposed to get information on him. His guides are blocking it, or the Akashic guides are blocking it. If you get the information right away, it's kind of like they've already given you permission. So it's not even like you have to actually like consciously think of asking permission. It's just the permission is inherently given. I don't know.
Either granted or not.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's kind of like, oh, okay. The permission has been given because I'm receiving information. So it's not like you're being intrusive. I mean, and even the dark entities access the Akashic records. A lot of people don't realize this, but they have as much access to that information as we do. So it's not just light beings get to access the Akashic records. Any being gets the access the Akashic records. So they have access to the same information we have. And it's just a matter of what are you going to use it for? You're going to use it for good or for bad. And I think if you decide to use it against somebody's free will, then there are karmic repercussions for that. So it's not like, oh, they get away with using information on somebody and then using it against that person. My point when telling you this is that anybody can have access to the records. So if you're getting, if we're able to get information easily on, say, an individual, dark beings also have that same easy access. That's just something to be aware of. I might want to be more responsible about, the kind of information I'm accessing, because there's kind of a responsibility to it. It's not like, you just want to get information on let's say your ex because you want to get back at them,
No, understood. I mean, yeah, no, understood. Versus you were just trying to understand what went wrong with your.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's different if, say, you're trying to do like an understanding of it, like, oh, I want to get a fuller picture because I want to understand,
what was my contract? What was
what happened with this relationship, rather than, oh, I want to get, some dirt on them so I can really hurt them, So
Yeah, no, understood.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when it's devious, intention, yeah, that's a totally different.
Yeah, exactly. And it's the same with dark entities. If they use information against us, it has a repercussion on them. Maybe we don't see it, so maybe we think, oh, they got away with, just, but actually there is a repercussion, and it's a pretty big one usually. So I don't know if this answers your question, but
it helps. I mean, again, just awareness, and I mean, to some degree, it's odd enough that when I do readings sometimes with other people with different energy focuses, I guess you could say, it actually oddly enough becomes more of a little bit of a mentoring session, because I'm asking questions more on your experience, so I can understand what my experience, whether my experience is even normal, or you know what I'm saying, or to be expected. Because it's been a little frustrating trying to explore it and learn it and feel like I'm, I guess to some degree not succeeding at it, but I guess it's just really coming down to really just keeping at it and practicing.
It takes a lot. It takes practice. It's like anything else. I mean, I always say anybody can access the Akashic Records. It's not like it's a skill set that only a few can do. But I think what makes some people really good at it is that they've practiced a lot. And they're doing it every single day. Like me, I'm in the records I probably spend more time in the records sometimes than I do in my real life. It's gotten like that some days, where I'm just thinking, gosh, I'm spending half my life in the Akashic Records,
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, and so then it becomes like a different reality. Like you're in this other realm, and it can be kind of like confusing sometimes because then you go back to 3D and you're like, oh, I was supposed to do this, and this, and I totally forgot.
It's like, yeah, I missed my bills.
Yeah, or I just totally forgot I was supposed to do this, and that happens to me a lot. Unfortunately, I hate to admit it, but yeah, my husband says, "Why are you so absent-minded?" I said, "Because I'm in the records all the time. I'm in this other dimension. It's like." And it's actually like going into another dimension. It's just you're doing it, mentally rather than physically. And I think he's used to it now, so he just kind of like, oh, that's just Debbie doing her thing. But now I what I try to do is, so I won't forget things so much, is I put things copiously in my calendar, or make lists, because otherwise I will just constantly forget. I mean, for instance, I forgot this weekend I was supposed to house sit, and I found, my family contacted me and reminded me, and they said, how did you forget this? And I said, I don't know. I think I just forgot to put it in my calendar, and it's because I'm in the record so much that I'm in other people's realities, too.
Remember, there's no concept of time, so.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I'm not even in my own reality. I'm in other people's reality. So that gets really interesting to navigate. So you're going through this other person's whole timeline, and then you're doing like one reading after another, so you're in several people's timelines, and that's why it's so important when you do Akashic Records readings to always close the records after you're done accessing each person's records, because that's another way you prevent yourself from staying in the records all day long, because I've done that before too. So
yeah, no, my instructor said you got to remember, because you can totally forget.
Oh yeah, you got to shut it down. So that's why people will try to tell me, oh, okay, I'm done now, and I say, oh no, we got to close the records, because, and it's not that I'm trying to be nitpicky about it. It's just that I don't want to be stuck in their records for the rest of the day, So it's important to shut it down, but then you don't get somebody else's records mixed up with the next person's records. There's also that.
I didn't think that could really happen, like really happen.
Oh no, it can happen. Yeah, you'll get really confused, or there'll be overlays of. It's kind of like if you're playing two movies simultaneously at once, and you can't really focus because there's two different stories, and you're just like, oh, well, which story am I supposed to focus on?
It becomes like a confused mess, I'm sure.
Yeah, so there's a lot, I think, responsibility that people don't realize when they're going into the Akashic Records. That it's not just like, oh, it's fun and games, like maybe playing on a Ouija board or doing tarot card readings. There's I think a level of responsibility involved with it, that we have to respect the records. We have to respect our permission to access the records, and to respect the Akashic guides. The other aspect of accessing records is when you see information in the records that let's say if you're doing a reading for somebody and you see information that's really disturbing,
Okay.
and then you're just trying to decide, do I tell this person? Because this is.
Have you run into that? Have you run into that often?
I wouldn't say often, but I would say yes, I have ran into it. I would say a number of times where, let's say, if you read, I'm just going to use a client of mine as an example. I'm not going to give any names. I was doing a reading for a family member, and I saw that she was a sex slave after the Lyran Wars. Okay, and it was pretty graphic what I saw. And knowing her and knowing her sensitive constitution, and I checked with her guides. I said, should I tell her this? And they said no. A lot of times the guides will let you know. I mean,
okay. But like it's more like is it helping her or is it harming her?
yeah, if it's just gonna impede her progress, then it's no point in telling her. And or sometimes though I have clients that are the opposite. They may not remember, like, say, some incident in their childhood, and they say, I want to remember. And I said, well, if I see some really bad things, do you want me to tell you? Because it might be really bad. And I'll have clients tell me, yes, I want to know everything. So I received permission from them, okay? So I'll go into the records, and a lot of times I'll see like child sexual abuse. I mean, some really bad stuff. And I'll tell them, okay, this is what I'm seeing. I just want to let you know it's bad. A lot of times their guides will also let me know simultaneously, like, okay, it's okay for them to know. They can handle it. So the guides are usually there alongside of you to let you know. And that's that discerning of the voices again that we were talking about earlier, about when you hear a voice that doesn't sound like yours and they're saying, yes, it's okay to tell them this information that you're seeing in the records, then it's okay. So they can, but sometimes they'll tell you, no, don't tell them. No, I mean, it's not even, and they'll let you know. I mean, they're pretty direct usually. But that's why there's so much, I think, responsibility involved with the records, because you don't want to tell somebody something that's going to impede their spiritual progress. And in a way, it's kind of like a violation of universal law, because you're impeding on their free will, because maybe they don't really want to know. So, it becomes seamless. So it's not like, oh, it's this heavy thing. It's not really all that heavy, actually. You'll know immediately, like, oh yeah, I don't really want to tell my client this, or they don't really need to know. Or you might decide to tell them, but maybe tell them in a gentler fashion, like, oh, you were killed in this war, rather than telling them the gory, play by play detail of what happened.
Understood.
Yeah. So the guides also let you know that, like, you can tell them, but don't go into the great details, because that would just re-traumatize them.
Was beheaded or
Yeah, exactly. Most of the times, my clients are pretty, I mean, if they're star seeds, they're pretty hardy. They've gone through some really horrible lifetimes and they understand that. Okay, so and a lot of them are in the process of clearing this stuff out, so they want to know. And so, but I think you'll be guided, so that's the thing I'm trying to. I don't know if this is. I think maybe. I think you're doing a great job of exploring your access into the records. I think just the fact that you're getting images and that you're receiving information tells me that you have the ability. It's just fine tuned.
I mean, it's like you said, it's like, is it mine? Whose is this? It's like there's a lot of questions in your head because you're seeing so many different things that don't even make sense. But no, it's helping what you're telling me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, and I hope it's helpful. But is there anything else that I'm missing that you want more information on?
From everything you explained to me, it sounds like it's all. I mean, it's all pretty basic and obvious. I guess on my side, was trying to understand if there was anything else I could do, or try to understand from my guides, or receive any guidance about it. That's primarily it. And because you are specifically more of a galactic reader.
I am more of a galactic reader.
You are pretty much the only person I've gone to for that, but you had the most information about me. And so I was trying to understand if there was any other information I needed to get or receive based on that.
I think you have the same ability I have. I mean, the only difference between me and you is that I've been doing this a few years. Okay, so but when I started off, I was just like you. I was just like, I'm seeing stuff. I don't know what it means, but or
how long did, I mean, just to give me some sense of it though, it's like, how long did it take you? About a year?
Oh, as far as timeline,
but you.
I think it took me about a few months for me to sort it out. And I like that you took an actual course in Akashic reading because a lot of people just try to wing it. And
I did that at first.
Yeah.
That's what I did first, and I got frustrated because I tried to wing it, and I started getting images, and I started feeling I needed to figure out how to focus. And so the homework and the practices that were given, they were helpful.
They help. Yeah, they definitely help. Yeah, I mean, I think it helps you to. It's kind of like you can learn to play an instrument, but then you can learn to play an instrument properly the way you're supposed to. Yeah, so.
So the odd thing though I've noticed is if I practice on someone else, I seem to get more of a clearer reading than I do for myself, and that's where I was kind of getting frustrated too and trying to understand.
Yeah, that's because we're not objective when we look at our own records.
Is that basically it?
Yeah, because I have the same issues. I was seeing things in the records about my past lives, and I was like questioning everything because I thought, I mean, when you're looking at somebody else, you're very objective. You don't have an emotional attachment to what you're seeing, so it's easier to be objective. But when you're looking at yourself, you're questioning things like, oh, this can't be right, or oh my God.
Well, it was more like, what is that?
Yeah, or you're just like, what the heck is, or there's certain things that you don't have access to. Like I couldn't access my Lemuria life. I was just like, what the heck? And now, looking back at my Lemuria life, I can see why it was really traumatic. I mean, the way way I passed, but it was. I think sometimes when we're looking at our own records, it's good to get confirmation from somebody else.
I went to somebody who reads energy specifically, and she got that, and then someone else who consults guides confirmed my Lemurian side big time.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, so a lot of times if I see something, that I think, wow, that's really pretty bizarre, I might go to a really like maybe my Akashic teacher. I'll tell her, hey, I saw this, can you confirm this? Or I might say to her, what do you see regarding this situation? And see if it matches up with what I found. And if it does, then that's my confirmation, but yeah, I think it's common for anybody, even myself, when I'm going into my own records, I'm just like questioning it, because I think that's just a human tendency, because there's more of an emotional attachment to what we're seeing than, if we're doing a reading for somebody else, then, it's easier to be more objective. So yeah, I would say probably the information you're getting on yourself is correct. It's just, I think just getting that validation.
Got it.
And then, and that's with practice too. After a while, you'll be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, I guess if it keeps repeating.
Yeah, if you're getting the same information over and over again, it's got to be correct, even if it's bizarre.
You were a man in another life, and you were a farmer, and you're kind of like looking at it just strangely because it's, just not something you expected or whatever.
Oh yeah, no, I get that kind of stuff too. Like I would never thought of myself as being an African slave, but I was, and I was like, okay, now I understand, so, so sometimes you get some really bizarre stuff and it's like, okay, yeah, that's weird, but I'm seeing this over and over again, so it must be the truth, so it's not like I'm making it up, No,
understood.
But I think you're doing a great job. I mean, just from what you're telling me, a lot of times what I hear from people is I don't get anything. I go into the records and I don't see anything, and then they're really frustrated. So the fact that you're getting images and you're getting some sort of information back is telling me that you're on your way there. You're already in the records. It's just learning to interpret what you're seeing. And that, I think, just comes with reading the energy signatures of each of these lives. Like, oh yeah, this is a Pleiadian signature, or this is a Arcturian or Andromedan. You can tell.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I find that amazing what you're telling me there. And then just curious, how much does physical I guess you could say physical condition affect your abilities? Like, how they say no drinking, or just curious, meaning or like when you're too tired or stuff like that. Does that?
Oh, it has a big impact. Yeah. If I know I have readings the next day, I won't drink that night. I mean, it doesn't matter if I'm out with friends or hanging out with my husband at home, and we're just having a cocktail or whatever. But and my husband understands this, so he might be drinking, and I just tell him I got Akashic readings tomorrow, can't drink,
Okay.
because it does affect your ability to access the records. Being overly tired. I did a reading once for a girl that I was really tired, and I was just pushing through to do her reading because she had booked, and I thought, oh, I don't want to cancel at the last minute. I did a terrible reading. I did such a terrible reading for her. I refunded her money because I just said, you know what? I did a terrible reading for you. I was tired. I don't feel like, yeah, that you got the right information. So I'm going to refund your money because, and I've only had to do that once. It's not like a common thing, but
No, understood.
Doing 4 readings a day is really pushing it. I can't do more than 4. And that's if they're spaced out. If I'm doing one after the other, I can't do that. It's like, it's too much. So a lot of times on the weekends, I'll limit it to 3 or 4. And that's on a really busy day. Sometimes I only do 2 readings a day. It's very, I think, mentally exhausting.
Well, no, I believe that because when I'm trying to make sense of everything, when I do my practice on myself, sometimes I'm just like afterwards, because of trying to make sense of it, I do feel that, not fatigue, but just kind of like, gosh, I had to really use my mind on what that all meant. And
You're using all your clair senses all at once, so it's not just clairvoyant, you're also doing clairsentient, clairaudient. I mean, you're doing it all at once.
You're activating all your clairs, yeah.
I want to do the best reading I can for each person. I want them to have the best experience because they're, spending money, and, and a lot of times, a lot of people are saving up their money, to have this reading. And so I want to give them the best experience. So I want to be at my best, so I don't eat a lot of sugar like around the time I, do a reading, because, sugar affects me, or alcohol affects me, or
anything, yeah.
anything that's going to, I think, alter your physical state. I don't smoke weed, I don't smoke weed anyway, but especially not, before you're doing a reading. Just,
of course, that makes sense. I appreciate you spending the time to talk to me about it. I know I didn't quite get to any specific questions at this point beyond that, but maybe I'll save that for a different time. Since you're saying that I'm starseed, does that, and you said my husband was starseed, does that make my daughter necessarily starseed as well?
Most of the kids that are being born since the 90s are starseeds. I would say probably 98% of them are starseeds.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely your daughter's a starseed.
Would that make any part of the rest of my family necessarily, or not? I mean, like your
It
parents.
it depends on when they were born. Okay, and this is something else that I'm going to probably talk about when I teach Akashic readings, especially Galactic Akashic readings. Pretty much anybody born during World War II and before are probably not starseed. Okay. There are exceptions, and you'll know when the exceptions are. Just by reading that person's frequency. Most star seeds didn't start coming in this timeline in our planet until 1946, 1947. Okay, so you get some real early star seeds, but even then is kind of pushing it. Majority of star seeds came during the late 40s through, and then there were certain groups that were coming in first. And then you'll see this as you're, going into the records more. So
well, you gave me some information on being able to access my family in a roundabout way. So I'm curious. I guess that's something I could try and experiment.
Yeah, but even if your family's like, an earth soul, like let's say if you're accessing records for your parents, you're still going to get information, on your parents. It's just not going to be off-world information because they probably didn't have lives from, they probably didn't originate from the Pleiades or from, Andromeda or something, so, but you will get Earth lives on your parents, and you will get maybe information on how you connected with your parents, in a past life, what kind of contract you made with your parents. So that's real useful sometimes. I was trying to do this with my dad because my dad and I are so different. My dad is, he's passed, but, so it's not like I can go access, ask him, these questions. So I had to go through his records, and I had to access them through mine. And then I saw what the contract was, and it was like, oh, okay. He was supposed to really break me into the Earth experience, because, so I was like, okay, that's why I chose my father, because I was like, why would I choose such an authoritative father? I mean, it didn't make any sense.
Well, understood.
Yeah, so you get that kind of information, okay, and it's super helpful. It's like oh, okay, that makes a lot of sense. So yeah, you'll still be able to access your family's information, but not everybody in your family is going to be a starseed, okay? And there might be even like your brothers and sisters that might not be starseeds. That's.
Okay. I mean, it just seems more prolific, and I was just curious about what the tendencies were. I haven't tried to ask that question about my family, but now you've given me some
Yeah,
basis.
I think usually you can tell like which members of your family are starseeds, even without accessing their records, by their frequency and by what they're interested in. So even if they're not aware they're a starseed, you can usually pinpoint them. So and I'm trying to give an example. Like if you have let's say a nephew or a niece that's really interested, or either really super creative or very technical, or they're just really interested on really out there information, like they're just out there, they're more than likely they're a starseed. Okay. Yeah. If you have say a sister that is very 3D and I mean,
very material.
very materialistic, very much in this world and not really interested in anything outside of this world, more than likely they're not a starseed.
I see what you're saying. I mean, as far as the perspective of what that looks like.
Yeah. I hope this was helpful to you, and it was an interesting
It was
reading.
very helpful.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate it. Explains a lot, and it helps give me some guidance on what I'm experiencing, and that's more than I could have asked for.
Oh, well, thank you. And I just want to wish you a lot of happiness, success, and love in, your journey. I think you're going to have an exciting time, accessing the records. Accessing the records is so much fun. It can. At first, it seems like really hard work, and then after a while, it gets to be really fun.